You know the image, right? A dark, dusty laboratory, bubbling potions, and this lone, shadowy figure, the alchemist, completely obsessed with one thing, turning worthless lead into pure gold. It's a classic story. But what if that whole story, the one we all know, is fundamentally wrong? The psychologist Carl Jung spent a huge chunk of his life digging into these ancient, cryptic texts, and he came to a pretty radical conclusion. We've been misreading alchemy this whole time. What if all that secrecy, all that arcane symbolism, wasn't about a get-rich-quick scheme that failed? What if it was about something way, way deeper? What if the alchemists weren't trying to transform metals in a flask, but were instead transforming the one thing they had complete control over, themselves?
So here's the big reveal. Jung didn't see alchemy as a primitive, failed science. Not at all. He saw it as a kind of proto-psychology, a symbolic roadmap for becoming a whole person, written centuries before anyone even had a word for psychology. The goal, he argued, was never about gold, it was about psychic wholeness, what he later called the process of individuation. The lead they were working on wasn't a metal, it was the raw, undeveloped parts of their own psyche.
Okay, so to really get this, we have to learn their language. And I'm not talking about chemical formulas, I'm talking about the ancient, powerful language of symbols. This insight from Jung is absolutely crucial. See, the alchemists weren't just making up a secret code to hide their work from rivals. A lot of them couldn't even understand the texts of the alchemists who came before them. Jung realized their bizarre, dreamlike language wasn't meant to hide something they already knew. It was their attempt to describe something they were experiencing for which there were no words yet, the deep unconscious process of personal transformation. And the main tool for this was a psychological mechanism called projection. Think of it this way. You have a really terrible day at work, and on the drive home, the person in front of you is going just a little too slow, and suddenly they are the most infuriating, evil person on the planet. You're projecting your inner anger and frustration onto them. Well, the alchemists were doing that same thing, but on a massive scale. The bubbling, separating, and uniting chemicals in their beakers became a giant movie screen for their own inner psychic drama. They were literally watching their own souls react in that crucible. And here's the thing. The symbols they saw weren't just random. Jung believed they bubbled up from what he called the collective unconscious. You can think of it as a deep, shared psychic inheritance of all humanity. It's filled with these universal patterns or archetypes, like the dragon, the wise old man, the sacred marriage of a king and queen. This meant that alchemy wasn't just some historical quirk. For Jung, it was a goldmine for understanding the fundamental architecture of the human soul, every bit as important as mythology or religion. So if this is a psychological journey, what's the map? Well, the alchemists called their process the great work, or the opus. And in Jung's eyes, this wasn't a recipe for gold, but a clear, three-stage psychological process for becoming whole.
The whole great work unfolds in three major phases, each with its own symbolic color. It starts in darkness, moves into light, and finds its completion in red.
So, stage 1, nigredo, the blackening. This is where it all begins. In a state of chaos the alchemists called the massa confusa, the confused mass. Psychologically speaking, this is the descent. It's that necessary and often really painful confrontation with your own shadow. You know, all the parts of yourself you've ignored or repressed, the inner conflicts that are raging beneath the surface. This is the dark night of the soul. But out of that darkness, if you stick with it, comes the albedo, the whitening. This is the sunrise after that long, dark night. The inner war starts to resolve, leading to a sense of clarity, of purification. The key symbol here is the hieros, the sacred marriage. This is the union of opposites within your own psyche, bringing together your analytical mind and your intuition, your masculine and feminine sides, the face you show the world and the one you hide.
And finally, we reach the grand finale, the rubido, or the reddening. This is where the purified unconscious, symbolized by the white moon, is fully integrated with consciousness, symbolized by the golden sun. And this isn't just about them coexisting peacefully, it's a dynamic, living synthesis. A new, vibrant, whole personality is born, one that is conscious of its depths and has integrated its own darkness. The great work is finally complete.
And that brings us to the most legendary prize in this whole endeavor, the symbol everyone's heard of, the Philosopher's Stone. And as you've probably figured out by now, it wasn't a physical stone you could hold in your hand.
No, the Philosopher's Stone, the lapis philosophorum, is the ultimate symbol for the goal of the great work. It represents the integrated self. It's the symbol for a person who is no longer at war with themselves. Someone who has faced their shadow, integrated their opposites, and created a conscious order out of their inner chaos. In short, it's the symbol for becoming who you are always meant to be.
And what's absolutely incredible is that this idea pops up everywhere. The alchemists had all sorts of wild names for it, like the rebus or the two-in-one being. But we see the same core symbol across countless cultures and centuries. Think of the mandala, that sacred circle from Eastern traditions that represents cosmic and psychic wholeness. They were all pointing to the very same deep human drive, the quest to become a unified, integrated individual.
Okay, so fascinating history lesson. But why does any of this matter to us, right here, right now? Well, because Jung's decoding of alchemy reveals something truly profound. These guys in their dusty labs were, without even knowing it, the true pioneers of death psychology.
I mean, just look at these parallels. They're stunning. The alchemical conjunctio, that union of sun and moon, that's precisely what a therapist today calls the integration of unconscious content into consciousness. The alchemist's intense relationship with his helper, the soror mystica, or mystical sister, it's a perfect blueprint for what we now call transference in psychotherapy. And the entire great work, the opus itself, it's a symbolic map of the modern therapeutic journey, from crisis to integration. They were charting the course of self-discovery hundreds of years before we had a clinical language for it.
So, the alchemists, totally unaware of what we call the unconscious, projected their whole inner journey onto the stuff bubbling away in their labs. We don't really have labs anymore, but our psyche still projects. It has to. So the final question really is for you. Where are you trying to find your gold? What person, what job, what goal out there in the world is secretly holding the projection of your own great work?